Hey guys, Rushy here and welcome back to another video. As you might be able to tell, since my last video I've had yet another change of hairstyle. About a week ago I shaved my head. I'm in the process of letting it grow back out whilst I'm trying to decide what hairstyle to have next. Something else you've hopefully noticed since the beginning of this year is an improvement in video picture quality. That's because, as I've previously mentioned, I got a new phone this year, which brings me on to the topic of this video. So in this video, I'm going to let you all know about all the mobile phones I've owned over the years, how many phones I've owned, what each one was like, when I owned them, and I'm also going to let you know my future plans with my new phone, which is what I'm using to film this video right now. Okay, so starting from the beginning with my first phone, this was back in 2010 I think, and my parents bought this phone for me brand new from a catalogue. I think it cost about £80, and that phone was a Samsung SGH D900i. It was one of those older style phones. It wasn't a smartphone, but it was one of those slider phones that slid up to reveal a keypad. The one I had was black, and yeah, I absolutely loved that phone. I come from, a working class family, quite a poor background, so it was quite a nice thing to have at the time. Being so young, I didn't really use it to call people. I did sometimes, but not very often. I mainly used it to take pictures, although the camera wasn't very good, but mainly used it just to play games on. But I used to just love using it in general. One thing I did used to do as well, I remember learning to text on that phone, and it had a keypad, so it was the old style of texting. You had to press the key a certain amount of times for each letter to come up. I'm not sure how long I had it. I think it was about a year or just over, but then something went wrong with it from what I remember and what my mum told me. I remember, because it wasn't a contract phone, it was a pay-as-you-go phone, and I remember putting credit on the phone, but it wouldn't accept the credit, and I wasn't able to put money on the phone to text or call people. I'm not sure what the cause of the problem was. From what my mum told me, we went to the car phone warehouse to try and get it fixed, but the guy who had to look at it, he wasn't really professional. He was manhandling the phone. I don't think he knew what he was doing really, and I think it was broken, and I'm not sure if it couldn't be repaired or it would have cost a lot of money to be repaired. I'm not sure if we just threw it in the bin or just sold it off to some phone repair person for a few pounds. I think I got the phone when I was about 8 or 9, and then it broke down I think when I was about 9 or 10, and at that time in my life I didn't really need a phone, so I went without one for a while after that. I got my next phone on Christmas 2013 when I was 12. One of my aunties bought it for me as a Christmas present, and this phone was an Alcatel One Touch. It was a smartphone, but it was a basic smartphone from the beginning of the smartphone era, and it was quite cheap, but not too bad. It, did everything I needed it to do. And yeah, I really liked that phone. It was my first smartphone, and yeah, it was nice and small, nice and compact. I found the colour of it was quite odd. I think it was, if I remember rightly, either a purple or a pink colour, and it had a white on button on the side and a white volume button as well. But yeah, it was a decent enough phone, but what I mainly used that phone for again was to go online, browse the internet, and play games on it, and take the occasional selfie as well. That was also a pay-as-you-go phone. But I remember I didn't top it up much because I didn't really use it to call or text much, only every so often. And I had that phone for quite a few years, but after the first year or so, I didn't really use it much because for the same Christmas I got that phone, I was also given a tablet by my other auntie as a Christmas present. So I ended up using my tablet more often than I used my phone. But yeah, it was a good phone, and after I stopped using it, I ended up giving it to my auntie, and I think it got passed around quite a few people in the family just as a spare phone. But yes, going back to the tablet I got at the same time, that was a Samsung Galaxy Tab 2. And that was a tablet I really wanted because my foster brother at the time had an identical tablet. He actually got it the Christmas before I got mine, and I remember being so envious of it because it was such a good tablet, and I remember used to have so much fun playing different games on it. The one he had was actually bigger than the one I had. It was the same tablet, but it was a bigger size. But yeah, even though mine was a smaller size, I was really happy with it. It was ideal for me, and you know, it was full-on touchscreen, high definition, definitely better quality screen and resolution than my Alcatel phone. I ended up using my tablet more often than I used my phone. I did actually want to start creating YouTube videos with that tablet, but I tried filming one video with it, but the camera quality wasn't very good at all. So I just ended up using it just to go online, basically as a mini computer really. And yeah, I used that tablet for quite a few years, from Christmas 2013 all the way up till about 2016. And that's the year where I got my third phone. This was my first contract phone. I think I was 14 going on 15 at the time. So this is when I started using a phone to call and text people more often. And you know, I wanted a smartphone, basically something that combine my uses as a normal phone and the uses of my tablet in one. My auntie who bought me the tablet bought this phone for me, was paying for this phone for me. And this phone was an Apple iPhone 5S. Oh, this was my first proper smartphone. And yeah, oh, I loved this phone. I thought it was really high quality, you know, the way it was made. I really liked how it looked. At the time, I really liked the size as well. I thought it was quite a decent size for a phone, for a smartphone. And yeah, it had really good resolution, and you know, the way the phone operated, it was leaps ahead of my Alcatel, and an absolute age ahead of the old Samsung slider phone I had. And yeah, I really loved that phone. I really looked after this one. I ended up getting a cheap cover for it, just to try and protect it as much as possible. And yeah, I really looked after that phone. When I had my iPhone, that was when I started using social media, created all my social media accounts. Yeah, that was a really good phone, and I had that for 2 years as a contract with Vodafone. And then after that contract ended, in 2018, I got my fourth phone. I was 16 when I got this phone, and I decided to switch from Apple to Android because, first of all, it was cheaper. Secondly, you know, I'm not really fussy about Apple or Android phones. I just go for the cheapest option, and I'm not very tech savvy. I don't need the latest technology, just something that can do what I needed to do. And it was really good value, and it was cheaper than my iPhone. And this phone was my first Huawei phone, a Huawei P10 Lite. I'm still not sure how to pronounce the company. Is it Hawaii, Huawei, Huawei? But yeah, I ordered it in gold because I thought it would look really cool in gold. You know, at first I thought the colour was awesome, you know, in gold, very fancy. But looking back on it now, it does look a bit tacky, a bit over the top. Yeah, it was a lot bigger than my iPhone. It was more modern than the iPhone. And yeah, I really love this phone as well. It took me a little while to get used to the Android system, but not very long, and I got used to it in no time. It also took me a while to get used to how big the phone was, but I ended up getting used to that quite quickly. And compared to today, it was actually quite small. As smartphones are getting bigger over time, I've noticed the trend. But yeah, my Huawei phone, it was a really good phone. Didn't really have any issues with it. It actually had a fingerprint scanner on the back of it, which I found was really cool, really advanced. And yeah, you know, I used this phone, you know, to text and call people. And yeah, I went online on it a lot. You know, this is when I started properly using social media. Looking back now, I preferred it to my iPhone, and I looked after it as best as I could. I don't think I ended up getting a screen cover or protector for that phone, and that came to my downfall. I think it was exactly a year after I first got that phone, I ended up dropping it, and the screen bloody cracked. as you can see in the photos. Oh, I was absolutely devastated. Thankfully, the phone still worked, but I was gutted it had so much damage on it now. But because it still worked, I still used it, and I didn't pay for it. You know, my auntie was still paying for the phone, so I kept on using it. And like I said, for the first year, it was absolutely fine. Then I dropped it and the screen cracked, and that's how I used it for the second year. It was on a 2-year contract, so for the remaining year I had the phone, I just used it with the cracked screen, but it still worked fine. But I was looking forward to getting a new phone at that point. That contract ended, but because I had some issues with Vodafone and my auntie was with Vodafone as well, we had some issues with the company. You know, they weren't very forthcoming with their bills and letting us know when we went over our data allowances and stuff. So yeah, I didn't really get on with Vodafone, so I wanted to change to a different company, and this was at the start of the decade in 2020, and I was 18 going on 19 at this point. So I was at the age now where I could afford to, and you know, was responsible enough to own my own phone and pay for it myself. Yeah, so I ended up going with Tesco Mobile, and I ended up getting a contract with my next phone for, I think it was £18 or £17 per month. I wasn't allowed as many calls or texts as data as my other phone, but it was just about enough for me per month, so it was fine. And this is when I got my 5th phone, which was another Huawei phone, my second Huawei phone, and that was the Huawei Y6. To my amazement, it was actually even bigger than my first Huawei phone, which took a while to get used to at first. And another thing I was surprised with, it didn't have a fingerprint scanner that my previous phone used, which I got used to using, but I went back to using a password. But yeah, you know, it was really advanced. I was shocked at how much of the phone consisted of just the screen. But yeah, you know, I really liked that phone. I definitely preferred it to my first Huawei phone. It was definitely an upgrade. I ended up choosing black as the colour for that phone because I thought, you know, the first Huawei phone, you know, it was a bit tacky after a few months of using it. You know, I grew up a bit and, you know, I wanted something a bit more subtle, a bit more understated. So I chose black, and I think it looks really good in black. You know, I continued using it to film YouTube videos. Like I started with my iPhone and continued with my first Huawei phone, and now onto my second Huawei phone. And yeah, you know, with a new company, it was a 2-year contract. And yeah, you know, I used that phone for 2 years trouble-free until the beginning of this year. And luckily I did manage to crack the screen on this phone. And yeah, it served me really well. But it did break down last year, about a few months back, late last year. And I was actually travelling to university when it broke down. And yeah, it just completely shut off. It kept trying to start but not actually loading up. And I was like, oh my god, what's wrong with this phone? And it couldn't have broken down at the worst time. But yeah, it ended up trying to start, not starting until it ran out of battery. So I just left it uncharged then, knowing that it wouldn't work. And it was quite daunting having to go all the way back up, travel from South Wales to Northwest England by train without a phone. And that day I couldn't actually get up my 3rd train from Crewe station to Preston station got cancelled, so I had to come all the way back to Wales. I couldn't phone anyone. I ended up getting a taxi back to my address, which cost a fortune. And yeah, I was really gutted, and you know, I managed to get up to back up to Preston the following day, and I was worried about how I was going to, you know, continue with my studies because I needed my phone to log into my student account. So in a last-ditch effort, I just charged it all the way up to 100%, left it, and then tried turning it on again, and thankfully it turned on, and it worked fine after that. I'm not sure what caused it to break. I was wondering either if I banged it when I was carrying it in my bag, or because it started raining and some water got onto it, maybe that damaged it. But luckily it was no long-term damage, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to take the risk, so this year I got a new phone. Still with Tesco Mobile, and with this contract it was actually cheaper. It's £14 something per month, but I paid £60 up front to make it cheaper for the monthly payments. And with this new phone, which I'm using now to film this video, I've got it on a 3-year contract with unlimited texts and calls and 6 GB of data per month. So I wanted a new phone. I wanted something that was cheap, not old-fashioned, but not state-of-the-art, brand spanking new, top-of-the-range phone, because first of all, they're too expensive. Secondly, I'd be worrying about breaking it every 2 seconds. But also, I'm not the most tech-savvy person either, so it'd probably take me a while to get used to it. And as much as I wanted a really good phone to film YouTube videos for with high camera quality, I wanted something that was cheap, relatively simple, modern, but not too advanced. So I ended up spending a while looking through phones until I looked at a phone that I really liked. It fitted all my criteria. I liked the look of it as well. And the phone I ended up choosing was the Samsung Galaxy A12. So I've gone back to Samsung after 2 Huawei phones, Alcatel phone, an iPhone. So I've gone back to my roots, so to speak. And yes, I'm really happy with my choice. Like I said, I got this phone for 3 years. I'm trying to look after it as best as possible. And it so far served me really well. I was surprised that yet again it's bigger than my previous Huawei phone, which I thought was massive. But I have gotten used to it now. One thing, I was surprised at how cheap it was, considering, you know, how good it was. But one thing I noticed, which, you know, isn't the best, is the resolution isn't the sharpest. But that's okay for me. You know, as the saying goes, you get what you pay for. One thing I've also noticed is at times it can be a bit slow, especially after quite long and sustained use. But, you know, I try to look after it. I try not to use it all the time. And, you know, try not to take it for granted how good the phone is and, you know, how cheap it is as well. You can't expect perfection for what I'm paying. But yeah, it's served me really well so far. I'm really happy with the camera quality of the phone. The plan is for me to keep this phone until at least 2025, so hopefully, you know, I look after it. I haven't got a screen cover or protector for it yet, but I think that is something I'm definitely going to invest in soon. So that concludes this video, guys, this list of all the phones I've owned over the years and my tablet as well. Every phone apart from my original Samsung and my Alcatel I still have in my possession in storage. I think my Samsung's long gone, my first phone, and my Alcatel I think it was passed around a few family members. I think it was used as a spare phone, but I think that ended up breaking, so I'm not sure if it's just in storage somewhere or if that's been binned. But yeah, you know, I really liked all of my phones. I'd have to say my favourite is the one I'm using right now, my Samsung Galaxy A12. You know, it's a perfect phone for me and it's reasonable costs as well. But yeah, you know, it's been a nice trip down memory lane looking back at all these phones, especially my original Samsung. Think how far I've come and how far phones have moved on in the last 10 years or 12 years since I got that phone. And it's mad how I've gone back to using Samsung after all these years. But I'm not a brand snob, I'm willing to go with any brand. I'd have to say my least favourite out of the bunch was the Alcatel, because it was okay, but it was the cheapest of the phones I had. It served its purpose well, and, you know, I got some good use out of it. And it was a nice size as well. But it was just completely overshadowed by the Samsung tablet I was using at the time. But yeah, I'm really happy with all the phones I've owned over the years. So I hope you found this video interesting, guys. I try to cover loads of different types of content on this channel, and I've been planning on creating this video for a while now, and I thought it'd be interesting for you guys to hear about it. And, you know, it's been interesting for me to think back on all the phones I've had over the years. I've got lots of content planned for the rest of the year. I'm going to try and stick to uploading one video every month. And I'm really happy with the community I have on my channel. You know, I'm really happy with the growth of my channel. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next month in my next video. Take care.